Hello, I'm Leonard Maltin. You know, in the old days of those Saturday matinee cliffhanger serials, the audience had to wait an entire week to find out what happened to its hero. George Lucas went well beyond that. He kept us all waiting years between Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and then finally, The Return of the Jedi. Thanks for being here, George. By the time you got to episode 3, did anything from public feedback or from your own second thoughts change your vision of what the third installment should be? Or is it the way you thought it always would turn out?
No, it's pretty much the way it was always thought to come out. I mean, I had to make certain changes to things because in the original screenplay, the Ewoks were Wookiees, and Chewbacca really wasn't the co-pilot. So, and so when I did the first film, I loved the Wookiee so much, I said, well, I got to get a Wookiee in here, even though, because those may never get done. So I took the Wookiee out of the battles and made him the co-pilot. Because originally they were sort of a primitive race of people who couldn't fly or couldn't do anything, and because that was the whole point. And so I had to figure out how I was going to do Wookiees, and I basically cut them in half and called them Ewoks. But it was you know, a lot of that stuff is all there, but in the original it was a ground battle and an air battle all together.
How did you ever think of Jabba the Hutt?
Well, Jabba, it's one of those things I needed a gangster. I mean, he was in the first film, and in the you know, in the special edition, we're putting back a lot of material with Jabba the Hutt in the first film, in the very first one that we did, and so he was in that. You know, he's this big gangster, and it wasn't until a little later that we actually, because we couldn't do that sequence because we didn't have the time. But when we got to the third one and Jabba appeared, then we did this whole thing of designing. I wanted a big, kind of repulsive character, and you know, we had a lot of designers coming up with various versions of Jabba the Hutt.
Was it a conscious decision to move a good chunk of the action for Part 3 into an earthly outdoor terrain? It's so different from anything you see in the first two films.
Well, it was. I'm very conscious of the environments, and I try to have at least 3 environments in a movie, and I try to have them as different as possible. And then from movie to movie, I try to have the environments as different as possible. You know, in the first movie, we were on a sand thing. It was all kind of a brown color. And so then on the second one, I put in the snow, and it was all kind of white. And then I did the green, you know, swampy kind of thing. And the third one, you know, I mean, what can you do in terms of environments? You have to shoot it somewhere on this earth. Unfortunately, we can't go somewhere else. So, you know, a forest was really about the only thing I had left. And originally, even with the Wookiees, the Wookiees lived in a forest environment. They lived in the same kind of tree houses, and they did that. You know, they were sort of earth people. There's a whole motif of, like, Luke's planet. Everybody is brown. There's lots of browns and earth tones. Everything is earth tones and light tan and light brown, flesh color. You know, it's all very warm tones. And then when you go to the Death Star, it's all black and white. Everything is black and white all the time. I mean, it's all very harsh and contrasty in black and white. And I use that a lot. And so in the larger arc, it was the same way. You know, it was, you know, where the Wookiees lived, it was all sort of green and brown. You know, I added that in. It sort of was a motif that went from, you know, sort of a tan brown to a green brown. And so that sort of still exists in the actual film. It's there's a whole color and environment motif that goes through, and the good guys are all the earth colors, and the bad guys are all colorless.
Your many, many fans, and there are many avid fans, as you know, of the Star Wars trilogy, are wondering about the next 3 films. And why is it taking so long? Why does it take so long? And how long will it take?
Well, I'm working on the next 3 films, and I am in the process of writing the 3 screenplays now, and it takes a while to write the screenplays. To write the first Star Wars took me about 2 years, so I'm writing 3 scripts at once. It won't take that long, but it takes a long time to prep them, and hopefully we'll have one finished for 98. If not, it'll be 99. But we're doing all 3 at once. I'm writing all 3 at once. And the first 3 are based on the backstory that relates to where everybody came from, how they got there, what their relationships are.
Has this backstory been in your head all along from the inception? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I had to do the backstory in order to write the first 3. I had to know where Darth Vader came from. I had to know what his relationship to Luke was. I had to know how Ben Kenobi figured in all of this. And I had to realize that I had to understand that there were twins, and the whole arc of the story in the three that are out there now is really the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. And so the first three are really, that I'm writing now, are really about Anakin Skywalker. So now you have a redemption of somebody that you don't really even know. He's just always in a black suit. But you don't know how he fell from grace and the trauma that went through to get him to there, and then his son brings him back. But it's, and the real story hasn't even been told yet.
What would it take to persuade you to go back onto a soundstage and direct a film yourself?
Well, I'd like to direct again. I mean, I'm very interested and still in directing, and there is a possibility I may direct one of the next Star Wars. If I do direct again, it'll be the first one, so that I can set the stage and how everything works for the other directors to follow.
But as we approach the millennium, we can look forward to the prequel trilogy.
Definitely.